So Marcin, why don't we reflect back on 2023 before providing an investment outlook for 2024, just so investors and non-investors can understand a little bit more what we're looking at.
So now here we're in January of 2024. Last year was a very unusual year for the market. It was actually the first time in about 25 years where strategists came into the beginning of 2023 very bearish. The average return that a strategist has was about -3%. So the positioning was very, very bearish coming into the year, and we all know what happened during 2023. The markets were up about 25%. A massive theme of 2023 was the Magnificent Seven, namely names that have a high exposure to artificial intelligence or AI. So names like Tesla, Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they were all up, multiple folds of percent. And those 7 names, they make up about 1/3 of the S&P 500. So most stocks, actually I saw a very interesting chart. Every single year, about half of the stocks outperformed the S&P 500 and half of the stocks underperformed the S&P 500. Last year, 71% of stocks underperformed the S&P 500. So most of the names were actually negative. Only a very small handful of stocks were driving the market, and those were namely stocks anything to do with artificial intelligence. That's what drove the market higher. And as I said, secondly of all, the positioning coming into the year was very, very negative.
And I think that's actually a great point that you make. Sorry, not to interject, because a lot of people found that, the S&P 500 is up or the NASDAQ is up, not realizing that it really was those Magnificent Seven that were leading the pack, really with the rest of their holdings just sitting.
Exactly. If you take those names out of the S&P 500, most of the names, as I say, they were flat or very small up. So that was the driving force, the driving factor behind the positive returns that we saw in 2023. And that's one of the key things that our investment committee is going to look up in 2024, whether the breadth of the stock market is going to increase, whether we're going to have more names participating in this rally, specifically as it comes to small caps and specifically as it comes to medium cap stocks. Because to have a healthy bull market where you can't just have a handful of names going up, you need the entire market participation. So breadth of the market, whether that increases in 2024, is a key factor that we're going to be looking at.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful to understand. So to dovetail on that, as far as the Fed, we know that rates have been a big issue and many changes in the rates have taken place, particularly at the top of 2023. How aggressively will the Fed cut rates in 2024, if at all?
And that's a great point. That's actually the second factor that we're going to be looking at in 2024. As you guys know, inflation has come down from about 9% and it has come down kind of substantially to 3%. Market participants now believe, and Chairman Powell has indicated, that we're going to have some rate cuts coming in 2024. Market has actually priced in 6 rate cuts. So the market is relatively optimistic that rates are going to come down, the Fed is going to get a hold on the amount of inflation, and things are going to go well. So whether we're going to have 6 cuts probably is a little bit aggressive. That's why we saw kind of a big rally towards the end of last year as Jerome Powell indicated that there's going to be cuts in 2024. That's another factor that we are going to be looking at. And what's going to determine that? Well, obviously it's going to be the incoming data, and most notably, how is inflation coming along? Is inflation coming closer towards that 2% target or not? That's going to be the driving force behind whether they cut rates or not.
Well, we'll see what happens, I suppose, right? So as far as the big talk about recession last year, I think going into 2023, there were continued talks of a recession, which obviously and thankfully did not materialize. I was one of the contrarians who was not a believer.
That's right. That was not caught off camera. That was definitely off camera, but it was there.
It was there.
I can vouch for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcin.
Was bullish.
Even contrary to my very talented investment team partners here, we had some differing opinions, but that's okay. It all worked out for all of us and our clients and investors. So do we feel as though we are going to have a soft landing this year, in your opinion, or from our talks with experts globally and domestically? or are we going to have some sort of mild recession? What are your thoughts?
That's also an interesting thing that we're going to be looking at in 2024. The market is definitely not pricing in a recession. Some of the factors that we'll look at, and there are two factors which might tell you that there is a recession coming or there is not a recession coming. One factor that will lead you more towards a recession is leading indicators. So things like manufacturing, durable good orders. Globally, those have been declining for about over a year. And normally when we have such a sustainable decrease in manufacturing worldwide, then it inevitably leads to a recession. Mm-hmm. So manufacturing is definitely weak. But a thing that you can put a kind of a bright spark that a recession might not happen is that the labor market is definitely very, very strong. Unemployment is still very, very low. People are not filing for initial jobless claims. And it's hard to fathom that a recession is going to take place if the job market is that strong. That has not happened historically. So in order for a recession to happen, we not only need a deterioration in manufacturing data and some of the leading indicators, but most notably, probably we need a decline and a deterioration in the labor market, which as of yet has not happened. And some of the leading indicators which we look at as regards to employment, those are still holding up strong. So the market is not pricing in a recession, but there's always a chance that something might happen, and that's kind of the role of your great financial planner here, Rulla, that you got to prepare for everything that's going to happen, so you're not going to be caught off guard if something that even though has a low probability of happening might happen. So Absolutely. You're in great hands here.
Thank you. Now the big one,
Yes.
drum roll. As we are in an election year and approaching the 2024 elections, which will come sooner than we know.
Yes, we're already hearing a lot.
Right? A lot of investors tend to act on emotion, which is something we coach strongly against. We don't want to lose sight of the other core factors, facts, and goals. So with this in mind, Marcin, how do you feel the impact of the 2024 election? What is the impact going to be?
Well, probably the most impact is going to be, initially is going to be behavioral, because a lot of people, whichever party you belong to, if you're in one party and you think that another party is going to win the election, you think that's bad for the economy. And what that normally means is that you become very, very conservative. Data actually shows that markets go up no matter who's in power over the long term. And actually in the first year of a presidential, whoever's elected as president, markets go up by about 7% per year. So a big part of what's coming up this year, because you're going to be hit on it every single time, ads and so on, social media, and that's going to put more strain. Well, I should take my money out of the market because so-and-so is going to be president. So a big part of 2024 is going to be behavioral coaching and making sure that you take the right decisions and not be swayed by your emotions, not deviate from your financial plan that has been set out for you because of these short-term, gyrations, who's going to become president. But we'll most likely have a more detailed podcast about presidential elections and how does that impact the stock market regarding, for example, who's president, who's in charge of the House, who's in charge of the Senate. So that'll be an interesting discussion that we'll have in due course.
Yeah, many more blips to come. We'll keep everybody informed. I think that's our investment outlook for now.
Yes.
Join us again soon.
Yes, and we'll look forward to talking to you.
Happy 2024.